Hello again, and welcome to this episode of The One Thing That Really Matters. So, I say it each time, but what really matters in life? Job, family, music, politics, religion, sports, maybe current events. I'll admit, all of these things take up space in our life, but I believe there's only one thing that really matters, and that's what we'll talk about in this video cast. The one thing that really matters. Now, we may throw in conversations about all those other things as well, but at the end of it all, we'll try and discover how every topic we discuss fits within the one thing that really matters. Or does it? Today's topic, my opinion about my opinion, the conclusion of what we started last time. All right, so continuing from the previous episode, by the time I was 21, I had just gotten out of the Army without being shot, and as far as I knew, without any serious mental problems. I just wanted to get a job and make money. I figured if I could find a job making $2 an hour, working 40 hours a week, well, I'd be set. Today, that sounds a little silly, but that was my opinion then. I just wanted to have fun, and fun at 21 was what I'd been waiting for since I could remember. All of the stuff I couldn't do before now because I wasn't old enough. It was now up for grabs. My parents were hundreds of miles away, and Uncle Sam didn't control me anymore. I was my own boss. All I needed to do was get a job making $2 an hour. That would make life perfect. Well, I got that job making $2 an hour, and wouldn't you know, one of the first things I began to worry about was losing it. What if I didn't do well? What if my boss didn't like me? What if I had to miss work? What if? What if? So many what ifs. I noticed I started acting a little different at times, and I noticed my opinion about things started to change. When the boss would ask me a question, I began to answer with what I thought he wanted to hear. In other words, it wasn't what mattered to me anymore. It was my opinion of what mattered to the boss. Looking back now, I realized that I simply wanted to be seen as acceptable in the boss's eyes. And I began to realize that conforming to what matters to other people meant that I either didn't know or I was afraid to express what really mattered to me. Like most people, what mattered to me was making myself look good, at least as good as possible to other people. I found myself telling and retelling a story only to twist the details just enough to make me look good. I know none of you have ever done that, but I did. Anyway, I did it, and in my opinion, it paid off, kind of. Not only was my boss happy with me, but I got promoted as a result. Whoever says flattery doesn't pay is wrong. Because frankly speaking, if you flatter the right person, it can go a long way to you getting what you want. Now, I'm not suggesting that you do it. No, I'm just saying. Somewhere along the way, though, I discovered my boss was just as worried about what mattered to people above him as I was about what mattered to him about me. After a while, I also discovered that conforming to other people's understanding of what matters didn't necessarily make me right, and it didn't leave me feeling happy every time. In the end, ultimately, it didn't make me look good to other people either. Well, maybe for the moment, but not long term. In fact, sometimes the opposite happens. Sometimes the person I decided to dazzle with flattery, you can use another word if you want, saw right through me. But I was young and stupid. After a while, even young and stupid can begin to figure out the things that work and the things that don't. Well, so eventually I set about gathering as much information as I could about the things that really mattered to me. Now, it might surprise you to know, but I really didn't know what mattered to me the most. Sure, I had a background to know what really matters. I had parents who made sure I was exposed to the truth of it all. However, I found I couldn't determine a lot of stuff for myself, though, until maybe I got a little older, maybe a little wiser with a fair amount of life experience, good and bad decisions. And all my life's experience has gone into the process of discovering what really matters. We'll find that out in just a moment. A couple of examples, for instance. Once, I was approached by a company to interview for a job. Now, I was flattered that the interviewing company was pursuing me, so I fed my ego, which I have one, imagine that, by agreeing to the interview. Of course, I wanted to make a good impression and answer questions in a way that would generally make me look good to the interviewer. Now, normally back then, I would evaluate the interviewer, decide how I thought they wanted me to answer a question, and formulate my answer to what I thought mattered to them. Except in this case, you see, I already had a good job, and I had no intention of leaving, so I felt like I had nothing to lose, and I could answer questions honestly without consideration of what I thought mattered to the interviewer. Well, I can express what really mattered to me. One of the questions I asked was asked in an interview was, "What have you accomplished in your career that would make me want to hire you?" Well, normally, the normal me, I would have figured the interview wanted to hear a list of accomplishments, which would include things that I either had done, helped to do, or had taken credit for doing, whether I'd actually done them or not. These accomplishments would have resulted in millions of dollars in cost savings, significant increases in pre-tax profit on the profit loss statement, and in favor of the company that I worked for. However, since I already had a good job and I wasn't looking for another job, I felt I had nothing to lose. I answered it in a much more cavalier, albeit truthful manner, which I haven't really done anything, I said, spectacular or significant, except for doing my job. I haven't saved my company millions of dollars. I haven't invented any process changing methods. And I'm not always hired the best people in the world. I just come to work every day and do the job the best I know how. And in another instance, one day I received a telephone call out of the blue. I wasn't looking for it, from a company in another state wanting to talk to me about taking a position with more responsibility. Again, I already had a good job and wasn't interested in leaving, particularly in relocating to another state. I said as much to the person who called me. Several telephone calls later, and with my ego having been sufficiently stroked again, I agreed to fly in for one day just to talk. Now, I expected to have a nice day, get a free lunch. Who wants a free lunch? Make a case that I was not interested, maybe make some new friends and be on my way. Well, indeed, that's exactly what happened. However, during the interview, after a brief walkthrough of the facility, the interviewer asked an interesting question. He asked, "What would you change to make the operation function more efficiently?" My honest answer was just as cavalier as the first time, but again, truthful. "The question is not a fair one," I replied. "I've only had a short 20-minute walkthrough. There is no way to know what changes I would make that would have any chance of success with such limited exposure." By the way, I was offered both of these jobs, and in each case, I was told it was the truthfulness of the answer to those questions that convinced them to make me the offer. Now, if you're like me, you might begin to see a pattern developing here. At least I did. It was through life experiences like these that I discovered the power of truth and honesty. Truth and honesty. A 5-letter word and a 7-letter word. I have a good friend who studies ancient Paleo Hebrew. He tells me that in that language, the number 5 represents the word grace, and the number 7 is a number that represents completeness. Well, I kind of like that because, well, in my case, it seems to apply, but you can draw your own conclusions. So, having said all of that, it is my opinion that before we can experience either of the 5-letter words, grace and truth, we must first come to understand that both words come as a result of a 4-letter word spelled L-O-V-E, love. And that 4-letter word results in our being able to experience the 7-letter word of honesty, which in turns makes us complete. At least that's the way I think right now. So, here's the big reveal. You've been waiting for it. The one thing that really matters is love. Love. There have been many, many songs, poems, essays, and who knows what else trying to express that 4-letter word. Sometimes people will use other 4-letter words trying to get their point across. I wouldn't advise that. More to the point, though, I'm not talking about the kind of love that makes you to desire someone else's body. That's lust, and it's based on feelings, not love. Now, there's nothing wrong with that kind of love unless, of course, you make it wrong yourself. I'm not talking about the kind of love either that leaves you feeling all gooey inside. That's emotion, and frankly, we all have our share of that. It's not even the kind of love that leaves you breathless. Well, maybe that's taking it a little too far, because if you are truly left breathless, literally, you may have experienced the kind of love I'm talking about. The love I'm talking about is the love you decide to have for someone. The kind of love that will cause you to put yourself in harm's way for that special person. The kind of love for which you would give your life, literally. The kind of love, that kind of love. The kind of love the Bible speaks of when it says in John chapter 15, verse 13, greater love has no one than this, than to lay down one's life for his friends. That kind of love. Jesus expressed that kind of love on the cross. Sometimes it's referred to as agape love, the kind of love that is unconcerned with yourself and more concerned with the greatest good of another. Agape love isn't born out of emotions, feelings, familiarity, or attraction, but from the will and as a choice. You see, you choose to love someone without expecting anything in return, even if your love is undeserved or not returned. You can still choose to love. That's agape love, and that's the one thing that really matters. So from this point forward in this video cast, no matter what we talk about, I plan to filter everything through an agape love filter to see if it passes a smell test. I know you've heard that before, I know. Is it love that is a choice, or love as an emotion or feeling? Is it in the best interest of others or in the best interest of a personal goal? I plan to talk about the hot topics of the day and some topics that may be a little uncomfortable. Along the way, I plan to challenge attitudes, activities, personalities, language, culture, social media, and much more while looking at what's going on in the world around us, all in the light of the one thing that really matters. In fact, in the next episode, I plan to discuss this topic. This world is a freaking mess and getting worse. and why, in my opinion, I think that's happening. You might not want to miss that one. I really hope you'll join me, and I hope you'll tell your friends. You can like and share. You can, however you do your social media, send it around the world. That'll be fine. You can either agree or disagree. Either way, I hope to generate an opportunity for critical thinking and personal awareness. And no, it doesn't bother me that your opinion may be different than mine. As I will say every time, I reserve the right to be wrong, but that's not the one thing that really matters. Love. See you next time.